We don't just build wealth, we build legacy. Welcome to the Retirement Income for Life show with Doug Vincent. For over 30 years, Doug has helped families right here in the D.C. area turn hard work into lasting income, helping you protect what you've earned, provide for your family, and retire on your terms. This is where preparation meets opportunity. This is the Retirement Income for Life show. Here's Doug Vincent.
Do the old rules still apply? One popular retirement rule is getting a makeover, and we're going to tell you all about that today. Welcome to the show. This is Doug Vincent, welcoming you once again in the DMV area, our local listeners. As we have been mentioning to you, we are here for you to help you with all of your retirement income for life planning. All of our consultations are 100% complimentary, and we'd love to meet with you at no obligation. Listen to some of our previous episodes on your favorite podcasts, also our YouTube channel. Please don't hesitate to contact us. Any questions you might have, give us a call at 301-242-3950. And also, you can always visit our website. That's Retirement Income, the number 4, LIFE.com. RetirementIncomeForLife.com. At that site, we have a free retirement survival kit that you can download absolutely free, along with where you can schedule time for us to meet with you. All right, for today's show, here's an overview. Number one, we're going to talk about an old retirement rule that's getting a makeover. And we're talking about this changes to the so-called 4% rule. Secondly, we'll talk about Social Security. A lot of people are under the impression that their Social Security benefits are going to go away, that the fund is going to run out of money. So the Social Security doubts are something we need to take off the table and address and go in depth on your Social Security. Thirdly, the new COLA projections, the new cost of living adjustments, inflation is going to make that number jump higher. So we want to dig into that and really see how that affects your money, your spending power, things like that. Then finally, we'll close the show today finding out if you are prepared for the loss of a spouse. If your husband or your wife was to pass away, we want to dig into explaining what we call the widow tax. And that's an overview for today. We'll dig into all of these. For your quote of the week, here's our financial wisdom quote of the week from Mr. Walt Mossberg. He said, "I see retirement as just another of these reinventions, another chance to do new things and to be a new version of myself." How about you? As you prepare for retirement, what version of you are you looking to see? And so we'll dig in more on that and talk to you more about that. But right now, first, let's talk about the 4% rule that just became the 4.7% rule. And the man who created it says that's going to change everything. His name is Bill Bengen. He has just written a new book, A Richer Retirement, supercharging the 4% rule to spend more and enjoy more. All right. So if you spent any time planning for your retirement, you've encountered, and if you've ever talked about taking money out of your 401k that lasts a lifetime, you possibly have heard about the guidelines of not taking out more than 4%. In your first year of retirement, you pull out that 4%, you adjust for inflation, each year. And the old adage is that money should last you for 30 years. All right. So for decades, that single number has shaped how millions of Americans think about how much they need to save and whether they're, ready to stop working. Do I have enough to where I could supplement my income with 4% of my 401k and be able to last another career, 30 years, or be able to last until I die? And, as I said, even last week, are people living longer? Are people living shorter today? Ask yourself that question. People are living longer. And so we really need to talk about this. And Bill Bengen, as I mentioned, he's the financial advisor who developed the 4% rule. This was back in 1994. He has published a new book and he's making it very clear, right? And this rule, has been a lot of times misunderstood, underestimated, and he's concluded, his conclusions backed by decades of additional research and nearly 400 historical retirement scenarios. So he's done a lot of research on this, is that the 4% rule now needs to be the 4.7% rule, right? More retirees, that's a difference of thousands of dollars for a number of you, even a number of you listening. So where the 4% rule actually came from, let's dig into that. So Bill wasn't a retirement guru. He was an engineer and became a financial advisor. And he approached this question of safe retirement withdrawals like an experiment, right? So in 94, he published his findings in the Journal of Financial Planning, and that's where the 4% rule was born. His research tested hundreds of historical scenarios against stock and bond returns all the way back to 1926, right? And the question he was trying to answer was simple and urgent. How much can you safely withdraw from your savings each year without running out of money? This is where we once again come up with the 4% rule. And a retiree who started drawing down their savings in 1968, right? At the beginning of that stretch of the market, it was bear markets, high inflation, right? In the 70s as well. Then that retiree needed to limit their withdrawals back then to 4.15% to make that money last 30 years, right? So he's doing all this research, going all the way back to the early 1900s up to the 60s and 70s. And he built this rule around that worst case to ensure it would hold up in virtually any economic environment. So the original rule was built around 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds, a balanced approach. And it was designed as a floor, a worst case baseline, not the ceiling of what most retirees could safely spend. That distinction matters more than most people are going to realize. So now, as we evolve here to 2026, Bengen now says 4.7% is that new rule, right? Decades of research, he's concluded the 4% figure, that's just a little bit too conservative, right? His new book, as I mentioned, A Richer Retirement, he identifies 4.7% as what he calls the universal safe max, the highest withdrawal rate that would have kept every retiree out of these 400 examples, this database of research over 30 years, right? That would have kept them universally safe. So the updated number reflects two key changes. First, Bengen has broadened the investment portfolio in his research. So he's taking on a little bit more risk, I would say. 60-40 now is 55 stocks, 40% bonds, and 5% cash. Some people might feel like that's less risky, but over a long period of time, that 5% in cash could, work against you. So just some thoughts to think about there. That diversified mix, as I said, 55% stocks, 40% bonds, 5% cash. So the only consistent number was the bonds. So secondly, strong stock market performance in recent years, that's what's changed the math. He doesn't believe we need as much in stocks because they are doing better than from the previous time when he was doing his research. So you put those two factors together and that floor rose from 4% to 4.7%. So in practical terms, let's talk about your $1 million portfolio. The difference between taking 4% out and 4.7% is going to be about $7,000 more per year. And if you got $750,000 in a portfolio, that's $5,250 a year. So that's the real money, right? The real money there, the difference between a retirement you survive and one you can actually enjoy. So you're taking out more money, you're spending more, meaning you're doing more, right? So also Bengen's data also shows that the 4.7 figure is itself conservative for most retirees. I would agree with him. The average safe withdrawal rate across all 400 scenarios in his database has been slightly above 7% over the last 100 years. And the vast majority of retirees could have withdrawn significantly more. Only one retiree in his entire database, the 1968 worst case, once again, was 4.15%. Now, things you need to think about related to this as you're thinking about having your money last for a lifetime, you want to consider how long, you might live. Now, hey, we don't have a crystal ball. If you're going to get hit by a bus 2 years after retirement, you needed to spend a lot more, just joking, just having a little fun with it. But you want to make sure that, you've mapped out a game plan to know what percentage you want to take out. Yes, this 4.7 is a guideline, but you may need more, you may need less. That's something that a retirement income plan that you put in place will be able to lay out for you. Not one size fits all, as we're seeing here. Some were taken out slightly above 7, all the way down to 4.15, right? So what the rule was never meant to be. It's never meant to be, right, intended to be a set and forget formula, right? It's just the starting point, a place to begin, a place where you say, hey, this is my first year in retirement. I need an X amount of dollars out. 4% is a good place to examine to start, right? So the research backed this floor to help you understand some minimum safety withdrawal rates, right? It was not designed to be the only number you ever look at again. As a matter of fact, this is one of the things we do each year with our quality control audit, so to speak, or our annual reviews of our clients' portfolios. You have to look at this on a yearly basis. It's not set and forget, right? So this rule also assumes a 30-year retirement horizon, right? A specific portfolio allocation and a relatively stable spending pattern, from year to year. Change any one of those variables and the math will have to change too. This is why we continue to emphasize this is your retirement plan. You might retire at 55 rather than 65. Your retirement might last 30 years versus someone else's is 40 years, right? When you retire with a heavily conservative portfolio, hopefully that portfolio can keep pace with inflation, right? If not, you may be in a situation where, your money's really going down faster than you anticipated. Also, you got to take into consideration what's called the sequence of returns risk. The sequence of returns risk is a factor that we spend a lot of time on to protect you against market downturns and taking out too much money as a combination. That's a double dip loss, so to speak, right? Those losses and distributions can permanently impair your portfolio in ways that you thought money was going to last 30 years and it only lasted 20, right? So the fear behind the rule and why it leads people astray. There's a reason the 4% rule became so dominant in the first place. And a recent Allianz Life survey found that Americans fear running out of money in retirement more than they fear death itself. How about you? Are you more concerned about dying? Or are you more concerned about running out of money before you die, right? This is real fear, right? And that 4% rule with its promise of mathematical certainty, right? It speaks directly to it. But the same fear, is combined with the rigid adherence to this rule, right? Same fear can push retirees into the opposite problem. And, if you have significant savings, once again, the 4% is, a place to start, right? And if you're looking to live 20, 30 years, you want to take a look at your budget, and hopefully you're living below your means. And you want to leave, a substantial portion of your wealth each year unspent, right? So at its core, a correction to this, let's call it overcorrection of this data, says most retirees can afford to live a little more generously, right? 4.7 than the original rule implied, right? The key is understanding the rule for what it is, a floor built on worst case, scenarios in history, and not treating it as a ceiling built around anxiety, right? Doesn't account for income sources most retirees actually have, like Social Security, your pension potentially, any annuities you may have that you've turned into pensions. You may have rental income from, your real estate, right? Any income stream that exists outside of your investment portfolio, right? It doesn't have to do all this work. You don't have to do all this, 4% rule, 4.7, 7%, right? And this should be your area of supplement. The withdrawals from your 401k or your qualified plan, your TSP, whatever it might be, should be a supplement to some of those other things that I've just mentioned that are single lifetime annuities that are coming for the rest of your life. So security, pensions, they're coming until the end. So what's this mean for you? If you've been planning your retirement around this 4% rule, that gives you a nice foundation. 4.7 might be your figure to give you a little bit more breathing room, right? The withdrawal rate for you is going to depend upon how you allocate your money, what kind of risk tolerance you have, what retirement age you're going to retire, how long you believe you're going to live, right? A 62-year-old with a pension and a paid off home is in a very different position than someone 58 with no other income and a mortgage, right? So the goal of retirement isn't to die with the largest possible balance, right? Hopefully that's not your goal, right? The goal is to live the way you want to live, right? For as long as you need to. We're talking about retirement income for life. Have you mapped out your dream retirement? You want to be able to fund it if you have mapped that out. Right? You don't want retirement to be a nightmare. You want it to be the fulfillment of a dream, right? So a number on a page can point you in the right direction, but only a plan built around your actual life can get you there. So if you've heard about the 4% rule or, any foundation towards retirement strategies related to this, do some stress tests, right? Look at some real timelines. This is something that we work on a daily basis. Give us a call, 301-242-3950. Set up a consultation. We can discuss sequence of returns risk, cost of living and inflation, withdrawal rates, making sure your portfolio is structured to go into that 30-year retirement. Also, retirement income, the number 4, life.com is our website. We look forward to talking to you and giving you some more information around the 4% rule. All right, let's talk about Social Security real quick here and the 2033 deadline, right? You've been hearing that for the last 5, 10, maybe 15 years that Social Security is going to be broke by 2033, that your benefits are going to be cut. Right. And if you're like most people planning for retirement, those headlines have you very uncomfortable and they are very alarming and downright scary. Right. The 2025 Social Security Board of Trustee report was released this spring and it moved that needle in the wrong direction. OK, the date when reserve funds are projected to be depleted advanced by 3 calendar quarters compared to last year's estimate, meaning the clock is running faster, not slow. The report now projects that 100% of benefits can be paid only through 2033. If the two main trust funds, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Fund and the Disability Insurance Fund, are considered together, right, that combined deadline would extend to 2035. But combining them will require an act of Congress. Good luck with that, right? Either way, your retirement income plan needs to account for what's coming next, right? So Social Security, is it going broke? What does that mean? What does that look for you? All right. So the word insolvency, right? Let's talk about that. That's technically accurate when describing what happens to the trust fund's reserve, but it creates a deeply misleading mental picture for most people. Listen. Social Security will not be shut down. Let me say that again. Social Security is not going away, right? There will be no day. Hear from me clearly. And this is clear data. There will be no day when checks simply stop arriving. Here's why. Social Security is funded through payroll taxes, not just reserves. Every working American contributes 6.2% of their paycheck, and their employer matches that amount for a combined of 12.4%. This flows into the system every time you get paid. Every pay period, 12.4% is going in. In 2026, that tax applies to the first $184,500 of anyone's income. That revenue keeps coming in regardless of what happens to the reserves. Are you with me? What actually happens when the reserves run dry is this: benefits continue, but possibly at a reduced level. Yeah, that's possible. The Center of Budget and Policy Priorities estimates that even without reserves, Social Security could still pay approximately 81% of promised benefits using the ongoing payroll tax income alone. Now, that's not a comfortable scenario. I want 100% of my money too. I don't want 81%, but that's a far cry. That's a long way from zero, right? The difference between 100% of your expected benefits and 81% of it's real money with real, that's real money. Yeah, that's 18% real money, real consequences, right? And guess what? You can't plan your retirement income for life around Social Security alone, right? It's one leg of the stool, right? Yes, this is an alarming headline. Yes, this is something we don't want to deal with. But, and we really don't know if Congress is going to fix any of this. Okay. I'm saying one leg of the stool wasn't going to get you there anyway. So let's dig in a little more. The numbers behind this shortfall: the American Academy of Actuaries have done the math on exactly what it would take to close the funding gap. And the options, they aren't painless, right? One path: immediate increase in the combined payroll tax from 12.4 to 16.05, right? So every time you get paid, they're taking out a little more. That's one potential path, right? Another one, an immediate across the board cut of 22.4% from the current, recipients. So that would bring down current recipients from $2,000 a month to $1,550 every month, right? For the rest of their retirement. Nobody wants to hear that, right? Neither of those is politically easy either, right? This is precisely why Congress has been reluctant to act. And there's something else that's making the timeline worse, is that the Social Security Fairness Act was signed January 2025, is actually accelerating this problem and an increased benefit levels for certain workers, right? It's a popular move to increase those benefits, but it pushed the depletion date forward as a result of this, right? So the longer action that's delayed, the more dramatic it's going to take to fix this. This is not politics. This is math. Okay. So every credible proposal to extend Social Security solvency involves a combination of tax increases, benefit adjustments, or both, right? There's no version of this fix that doesn't cost somebody something. So these proposals, they're on the table, right? Including, raising the payroll tax and, higher earners, pay more, contribute more, gradually increasing the full retirement age. That's another suggestion on the table. Adjust the cost of living formulas, others involve just drawing from general revenue, so these essentially borrowing from other parts of the federal budget, right? So this is a political challenge, right? Cutting benefit costs, retirees and near retirees, raising the retirement age falls hard on workers. Congress hasn't chosen to study this problem, as of now, but hey, it's coming, and this is going to have to be dealt with sooner rather than later, right? And so what's this going to mean to you, right? What this really is going to mean to you? It's going to mean that if you are 10 to 15 years before you retire. Okay. Think about this also. Do you know your full retirement age? You're eligible for Social Security at 62, but that's not your full retirement age. So I would encourage you to go to ssa.gov if you haven't already done that, and open up an account so you can see your statements. You can see your 62 number, your full retirement number, all the way to age 70. And that, you know, especially those of you that are 10 to 15 years, are looking at retirement in 10 to 15 years, Social Security is going to be a part of your income picture, right? Can you afford to treat your full projected benefit as a guaranteed number based upon what we just said, right? You may want to have your plan around 80% of it. Remember, we just talked about the 81% that's possibly going to be there, right? That's going to be a gap that you're going to need to bridge. You're going to need to bridge that gap, whether Congress makes this move or not. The worst retirement planning mistake you can make right now is assuming that this is going to get resolved, that you're going to get the total amount of your paycheck. Assume the worst, and we hope for the best, right? Second thing is, assuming that your benefits are going to disappear entirely. No, let that fear move away. Drive that fear out, right? And don't let that be a part of your long-term financial picture, thinking that Social Security is not going to be around. It will be around. It may look a little different, but it will not be zero. Social Security was never designed to be your entire retirement income. Okay, let me repeat that. Social Security was never designed to be your entire retirement income. Okay, so millions of Americans, they build a foundation, around this. It's one leg of the stool. Right. And right now, with the urgency of this fund potentially going away, it is definitely, important that you get your retirement house in order, get your retirement in place so you don't have to stress, get your planning in place. So you're not stressing about this. Do some stress tests and plan against a scenario of your 100% being 80. We're doing this on a daily basis. Give us a call, 301-242-3950. Go to our website and set up a free consultation at retirementincome4life.com. And we're doing this planning for a number of you all in the DMV already, and that could be you as well. Finally, at our website, we do have a retirement income for life survival kit. Downloadable, absolutely free. Let us help you with all of your investment and retirement needs. So I got a question for you. Have you heard from your advisor lately? Have you had a conversation? Have you been contacted? Have you talked or heard from your advisor lately? We're here to help you. If you'd like a second opinion, if you don't have an advisor, a complimentary consultation is what we're doing every day. They help you right here in the DMV to optimize your investment portfolio. We just talked about maximizing Social Security benefits. We help people create comprehensive retirement income plans that are specific to their family, specific to them if you're single. And our team here is ready to assist you every step of the way. You can reach us here locally at 301-242-3950. Also, our website, retirementinncome4life.com. You can book your consultation now, and we look forward to helping you reach your retirement income dreams and making sure you've got that retirement income for life. All right. So your 2027, those of you getting Social Security, look at a raise that's getting more interesting by the day. And what's driving it is inflation, right? So if you're collecting Social Security or you're counting on it as a part of your retirement income, you've been paying attention. Hopefully you've been seeing the talk about the cost of living adjustments, and they don't have to happen, but they have happened just about every year for the last years that I can think of, and they're always driven by inflation. The inflation spike that has the analysts revising the numbers upward, even for 2027, the number is actually being discussed to rise, right? So where things stand for the cost of living adjustment is the consumer price index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. That's what's called the CPIW. The specific inflation metric the Social Security Administration uses this to calculate the annual COLA, right? It came in at 3.9% year over year for April 2026. That's a meaningful jump from where things were just a few months ago. Okay. And this has two of the most closely watched, forecasted, it's being closely watched, and it's being revised up, right? I'm seeing this, as we're looking at these numbers, it's being revised up for 2027. So, we don't know what the final number yet is. That'll come out in October, but you need to understand that, that is something that is being discussed, and each of those updates related to inflation, is forcing these forecasters to revise these estimates higher. So the important thing for you to understand is we still got 5 more months or so of data coming before that final calculation. That means the 2027 COLA estimate you hear today is not what you're going to receive. It could go higher. It could level out. What you're seeing right now is just an informed projection. They haven't made any promises. It's just a good projection. So what the forecasters are actually saying, Mary Johnson is an independent Social Security Medicare policy analyst, widely regarded as one of the most rigorous trackers of COLA, right? She's looking at that data all the time, and she projects that COLA is going to be 4.2%. Okay. That's up from her estimates of 3.2% about a month ago. And this dramatic shift from her February forecast, that's 1.2% higher. So before that inflation data changed, this whole picture. So that means inflation is rising, folks. Okay. The Senior Citizen League, a nonpartisan advocacy organization that releases monthly cost of living adjustment estimates, updated its forecast to 3.9%, up from 2.8%, right? That was just in April, right? And so for the context of that, the 2026 cost of living adjustment was 2.8. 2025, it was 2.5, right? So we can clearly see that inflation is rising, right? And people like the Congressional Budget Office, they're projecting 3.1 earlier this year. Their estimates now are between 3.9 and 4.2, right? None of these are certain, but the CPIW formula is mechanical, and inflation itself, it's not predictable, but these forecasters are doing the best math with the data that they have available, and that's what's going on right now. So what's actually driving inflation higher? The categories pushing CPIW up aren't abstract economic forces. They're things you already are feeling, right? You're already feeling the register and the pump, right? You're already feeling the gasoline, tomatoes, coffee, right? Fresh vegetables, whatever is pinching you the sharpest right now. you are feeling that connected to this CPI. So the broader CPI, it also covers consumers, not just wage earners. It rose 3.8% over the past 12 months through April 2026, and the highest reading since May 2023. Energy prices have been a significant driver. The gas prices are a lot higher than they were last year, right? The conflict that we're experiencing, it's affecting the oil infrastructure, and it's keeping these energy prices higher. So when energy prices rise, it's rarely confined to what you pay at the gas station. High fuel costs push up manufacturing expenses and transportation costs, and ultimately the price of nearly everything, right, moves up through that supply chain, which is most things that we buy. So the CPIW is specifically designed to reflect the spending patterns of urban wage earners and clerical workers, which makes it an imperfect proxy for retirees who tend to spend more of their income, watch this, on healthcare and housing. It's the formula the law requires, and it's what determines the check you receive in January. Okay, so why a bigger COLA isn't always good news, right? Let's talk about that. So it's tempting to read, hey, I'm going to get a higher check, right? But the reason why you're getting the COLA in the first place is because things cost more. Okay. So everything you buying is going up. Okay. So 4.2% COLA doesn't mean you're 4.2% better off. Are you with me? Right? It means the Social Security Administration is trying to keep your purchasing power from eroding. Whether it actually succeeds depends upon whether your personal spending patterns match the CPIW formula. And for most retirees, of course, that's not going to track perfectly. The Senior Citizen League has estimated that Social Security benefits have lost approximately 13.7% of their purchasing power since 2016. To fully restore the lost ground, the average beneficiary would need a cumulative increase of roughly 15.7%, or about $295 more per month, not as a one-time catch-up, but simply to get back to where purchasing power was a decade ago. There's another verb, and that consistently eats into the cost of living adjustment increases before retirees ever see that money. That's Medicare Part B premiums, right? So for most recipients, those premiums are deducted directly from that Social Security check, right? Isn't that true, right? When premiums rise, when premiums of that Medicare Part B rise higher than the cost of living adjustment, which they've done several recent years, right? The net increase in your take-home benefit can be significantly smaller than the headline percentage suggests. So what's that going to mean for you? If you are currently receiving Social Security and a COLA is coming, we can translate that into a meaningful increase over what we've had in the past. So last year was 2.8. They're estimating hopefully 4.2. And that average benefit, we're talking about an additional $75 to $85 per month before any Medicare premium adjustments are applied. So keep that in mind. If you're within a few years of claiming, that the COLA trajectory matters for timing conversations, right? If you haven't taken Social Security and you're getting ready to, you want to be thinking this through and understanding how inflation could potentially affect that check. So the official 2027 cost of living adjustment will be announced by the Social Security Administration in mid-October, okay? October 2026. Once the July, August, and September inflation data is complete, between now and then, those estimates are going to continue to shift. So you want to keep an eye on that monthly CPIW releases, or listen to me. I'll be talking about it on a regular basis. And they are the clearest, the CPIW, this is the clearest leading indicator of where that January 2027 check is headed for you. And so finally, cost of living adjustments, right, is the system's attempt, let's recap this, for you to keep pace with the moving target called inflation, right? Some years it keeps pace, some years it falls short, right? The only way to know whether your income is truly keeping pace, is, with your life, you've got to run the numbers against your actual expenses. How do I know it's keeping pace if I don't run the numbers? How will I know if I don't have these items, reflected in a budget? What's coming in? What's going out? What is my revenue coming in? What are my expenses, right? So if you're not sure how this 2027 cost of living adjustment is going to fit into your broader retirement income picture, right? If inflation is, you still feel like you got more month than money because of inflation, right? If you're questioning whether your current plan, right, and the current expenses you have are going to be just sucked up in this, this COLA is really not going to make a difference for you. You need a second look at this. This is something you want somebody to help you look at, right? If you have an advisor, reach out to them. If you don't, give us a call, 301-242-3950. We are looking at these pieces of the puzzle each and every day. Retirement Income, the number 4, life.com, as well is our website. Set up your free consultation. Let's go through these numbers and make sure that you will have for 2027 and the rest of 2026 more money than month. All right. Let's look at this last topic for today. And it's something that I don't think a lot of us think about. And if you are a married couple right now listening to this, if you're married and you're listening to this alone, the question you should ask yourself is, if my spouse was to pass away, okay, and we do know that 100% of the time we are going to die at some point, right? Are you prepared financially for that loss, right? The large majority of married couples, when they get to this point where one spouse passes away, they're not ready. They're not ready for that adjustment, okay? And the surviving spouse faces a number of different challenges. Let's talk about some of them. So think about this on average, right? The immediate loss to Social Security income. So Social Security is 2 checks coming in if you're married, if you have the credits and you have a situation where both of you all over the age of 62 should be receiving a single lifetime annuity called Social Security. Okay, if you're eligible, you should be receiving it. Now, when one of your spouse dies, you die or your spouse dies, whoever was making the most, that check continues. So husband was bringing in 3,000, wife was bringing in 4,000, wife dies, the husband no longer gets the 3,000, he gets the 4,000. He does not, or she does not get 7,000. Are you with me? So that's an immediate loss, on average, 33%, right? As soon as you die and you report that information to the bank, death certificates in place, those checks stop immediately. They don't give you another month. They don't immediately. That check will stop, right? The year after your spouse passes away, here's something that you also have to recognize. Now you are filing taxes as a single head of household. That's a higher income tax bracket than married filing jointly, right? You lose tax deductions, right? Your Social Security is taxed at a higher rate, right? Your Medicaid surcharges go up. Why? Because you're in a higher tax bracket, right? You face a lot of financial challenges when a spouse is, out of the picture. This is something that you really have to plan for, right? Widows or widowers who meet with us, right? You never have to face these challenges alone, right? You've got to think this through because an untimely death could show up at any time. We are going to die at some point. So a plan to, make that pivot is very important. And so clients of ours know that we're there to help them in good times and in bad times. And if you or someone recently lost their spouse or is experiencing that burden, of what we call the widow's tax, call us, give us a call, share that information, yourself with them, send them to our website, give them our phone number, have them schedule a complimentary consultation with us, give us a call or go to our website. Okay. 301-242-3950, retirement income, the number 4life.com. So how do we prepare for the widow's tax? Let's think about that for a second. How do we prepare for this when our spouse passes away, right? If there's no solid retirement income plan in place, right? And let's say, you're the main provider, you're the main breadwinner, right? And that's the one that dies, right? You need a plan, beforehand, right? And let's just say, you are that one that you need to put this plan in place to protect your wife, or you need to put this plan in place to protect your husband. It's so important that this is in place, well before, something was to happen, right? The more time you have to work with, the more options you'll have, right? The better off you will be if, one of you were to pass with a plan that's already in place, right? So here's how we can help. We create a smart vision for retirement without your spouse in advance. Okay. Of course, we're not hoping for this to happen, but it's going to happen. Right. So just because you plan these different things, it doesn't mean that speeds it up. No, it's just you did good planning. Right. So, how do you want to spend time with family and friends? How do you want to fund your retirement? When less income coming into the household, what does that look like for you? Right. You create a solid retirement income plan, right? Understand the expenses are now on one person. You establish the income sources that you can count on now, raises that you may need to package in, things that you have in place that you're going to never, outlive, and, bonds, pension annuities, fixed index annuities, things that you can create income from that will never run out, no matter what's going on in the market, are good places to set up different types of, solid, diversified retirement plans. I never believe you should have all of your money out of the market, but I do believe you should create guaranteed income. So that's a whole nother discussion, but we want to measure your retirement income gap, right? Is it good? Is it bad? If you haven't retired, before you retire, this involves calculating expected expenses and, balancing your budget. If you're still in your 40s and 50s, do you want to set up something to receive tax-free benefits, right? A number of different ways to have income distribute to you, tax-free. There's a number of ways to discuss that. The Roth IRA, whole life insurance, of course, always term insurance, different things that you can do where you will have things in place so that upon the death of a spouse, you are in a position to be financially solvent and able to move forward, right? These are things where you want to consult with financial advisors, CPAs, tax professionals. You want to verify that you're on track related, to all of these things, right? So think about it. Dealing with the emotional burden of losing a spouse often takes time and support from family members as well as professional counselors. A lot of people you may need to consult related to this. But what we encourage is you take these steps in advance. You want to ensure that these financial challenges don't add up, stress you out, and have you in a position to where you weren't prepared. Okay, so 2 important decisions every couple needs to consider before their retirement. When should my spouse and I take Social Security? Okay, people ask me that all the time. When should I take Social Security? I don't know. It depends upon your specific retirement income plan. Okay. Second thing, when one of us passes away, how will the surviving spouse fill the income gap left by one of the Social Security payments going away? Remember, you will not get 2 checks. Social Security is a single lifetime annuity on that one life. You will get the higher of the 2, the surviving spouse will, but the surviving spouse will not get 2 checks. Okay, let's talk about a living will. A living will is also called an advanced healthcare directive. It's a legal document that allows individuals to specify their medical treatment preferences if they become unable to communicate. Okay. A living will outlines an individual's preferences regarding life-sustaining treatments, right? Pain management and organ donations, right? A living will also, it serves as a legally binding guide for healthcare professionals and family members to make decisions that align with a person's wishes. And also, there's legal requirements for a living will. They're going to vary, right? So this is where an attorney would come in, an estate planning attorney, and you'd want to consult them and follow the local guidelines, different guidelines from state to state. It's strongly advised for you to create an enforceable document, a valid document that lays out these wishes so that there's no confusion, in an untimely death. I don't know how many times I have to talk to family members who weren't sure what mom wanted, or I'm supposed to get this from dad, or, why is this being left, to this person, the living will talks about all of this. It's all there. And hopefully this is something where a family can come together to discuss these things, right? And once again, we want to assist you in getting this type of information put down on paper. We provide resources for you during our consultation. When we meet with people, we make sure that we recommend different tax advisors, different attorneys. There are a number of good professionals in the DMV area that you can work with. And you can, basically test out to see if they're a good fit for you. All right. So once again, if we can help you, always by giving us a call right here locally at 301-242-3950. Also, don't forget to download your free retirement income for life survival kit right at our website, free of charge. You download that. It covers a lot of things that we've been discussing. It'll get you prepared for meeting with your advisor or meeting with us. That can be found at retirement income, the number 4, life.com. So if you first time listening to us, or if you haven't worked with us before and you've been listening, to other episodes, this is how our process works. Okay. The bottom line is this is your plan. Okay. We start with you. Okay. We take the time to truly understand your goals, your concerns, the kind of retirement lifestyle you're working towards, whether you want to travel the world, spend time with your grandkids, buy that boat, give back, or just simply sitting on the porch with peace of mind. Right? It's all about you. A retirement income plan for life. It's about you. So that's why a deep dive is necessary. We dive into a current plan you already have or a plan you've never constructed. We want to make sure your risk is set up so that your investments fit your risk tolerance and your income sources aren't too exposed to too much risk. How does tax? What are the tax strategies that affect your current plan? What existing strategies are working? Which ones need to be adjusted? As I've said to you plenty of times, an accumulation strategy is not the same as a distribution strategy. So you need to examine where there might be gaps, where there are possible opportunities. Many people don't realize where they may be overexposed to risk, right? And they're missing income opportunities or leaving, blind spots, along the way. So you need a clear, personalized strategy that's focused in on income, focused in on security, asset preservation. We answer all of your questions. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. No pressure, no rush. We're having a conversation to get clarity so that you can feel confident, about your next steps. And most importantly, we're here to make sure you take action. Okay. You got to get that will in place. You got to get that trust in place, or you've got to get with a CPA, an attorney, financial people that can help you put together a plan. But guess what? A plan is only going to work if you implement it. Okay. We're here to guide you every step of the way. We're here to help. And it just starts, as I've been saying, it starts with a simple conversation. This should be something that's at the top of your list, especially if you're retiring in the next 1 to 3 years, especially if you're retiring 10 to 15 years. You've got to get urgent about these decisions. And finally, as I've been saying before, we're here to help. Give us a call, jump on our website, schedule a complimentary consultation with us today. Move forward, right, confidently, so that you've got a secure retirement income plan for life.